Welcome to Shop Night, where I make a gift for a deserving person in our community in 1 or 2 evenings. Hi, I'm Michael Fine, also known as Bohemond with bootsbybohemond.com. So tonight I'm joined by Kat. Kat, Shop Night Friends, Kat.
Hello.
Welcome to my shop. So tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I'm Kat Ramsey. I'm an artist based out of Kansas City, and I pretty much make anything and everything, so I'm more of a maker. And I have my website. We can put a link below, katramseyart.com. You can find all my work and see what I'm up to there.
Cool. I definitely say go look at that.
Well, thanks.
Right. So Shop Night's all about working on projects, usually using scrap from around the shop, and we have fun, we socialize, and we forge the bonds of friendship, usually while busting chops.
So picking on you.
Yeah, no, you.
Oh.
Okay. So tell us about what we're making.
Well, I'm the SCA. I'm a Laurel, and I have a German persona. So I have found, trolling the internet, a 1520 to 1525 shoe. I think maybe a little bit earlier, but we don't have copyrights, just visual.
And we're going to do a link to this person's site.
Yep. And then if you're looking for real research, we have a book.
So this is Stepping Through Time by Olaf the Shoemaking God. And if you look at page 266 and 267, you will see Type 90 shoes that are slip-on without a fastening. And our shoe is going to, on that website, is in this category. So here's a better look at those types of shoes. So you can get a good look at that. Now let's talk about the pattern. So once again, folks, I'm not going to talk about the pattern. I made this pattern while we were drinking last night. So if you want to know more about patterns, folks, let me know in the comments, and I'll spend a shop nights on making patterns. So, and then if you want, you can see the tools we're using, and I won't go through each of them, except I will describe these two needles here. These are Glover's needles. They are sharp pointed. They are a triangle point. And they're going to allow us to cheat one of the historical stitches we'll be doing today. So what was your intended use, Kat?
In the SCA, I run around like crazy and I do a lot of fighting. And usually that fighting is inside and on gym mats.
Okay, so leather sole's not going to work for you.
No, it's not.
Okay, so looking at the shoes and how we have it laid out, this shoe has a rand, and I'll show you all about rands and tell you about rands when we do it. And on the rand, we'll attach it to a midsole. And then the historical shoe would have had another layer of leather affixed to the bottom, and that would have been a historical shoe. But because you're on gym mats, we're going to go ahead and use an artificial material for the last step. You can use leather or the artificial crepe if you choose, folks. So follow along, and we will start making a pair of 15th, 16th century shoes for use on gym mats.
Yes.
I'm now going to introduce you to my scrap bin. Once again, we've talked about purposes of leather. Each of these leathers can be put to the right purpose. Grab your vamp pattern, Kat. Let's see if we have enough. Not enough.
No.
Okay. Nope.
Oh, that's too thin.
Yep. So this is scarred. That's a no.
No.
That's too light. No. Oh, this is nice.
There's a lot of it.
Yeah.
We got plenty.
Okay, so this is our leather. Looks like we've picked a oil tanned. It looks like we picked again, my favorite weight, which looks to be a 5/6 ounce. So that'll be our shoe. And then sole material, we found this piece laying around. So this looks like to be tooling leather for a knife scabbard. So it looks to be right about 4 ounces. That's not going to make a good sole or midsole. That's too light. I really like to use a 6/7, 7/8. So this would be too thin. This is the right weight, but it's the wrong part of the nap. This will not make a good midsole. I think that might be it for the veg tan. It's too thin. So I think really, folks, we're going to have to go back because of the shutdown and use artificial material. So we have our hide here, folks, and we have the spine of the animal towards you and the belly towards me. Cows stretch an awful lot from spine to belly and not so much from head to butt. So when I lay out my shoes, I don't like them to overstretch, or I don't like them to get too much material in the ball of foot so it's sloppy. So I will put this with the least amount of stretch, which is head to butt. I also like to put the pattern pieces as close as I can for shoes and boots near the spine. So we're going to use the spine area. And when laying out vamps, we always lay them out next to each other. So the next step is tracing.
Is this talking as well?
Yeah, so the thickness or the darkness of the line with a Sharpie on this leather depends on how slow or fast you go. If you want a really light line, you just go fast. If you want a really dark line, you go slow.
Slow and steady.
Slow and steady wins the race in most cases.
So there's one. And then do I flip it over to do two?
You're going to flip it to do two.
And we'll do two.
Tool of choice for big lines is always the rotary cutter, but not everybody might not have one. So this time we're just going to use leather shears, standard leather shears, to cut out all our pieces. You can see that we've got most of them cut out, and we have one more to go. Cut away.
I'm cutting on the inside of that black line.
Yeah, the paper pattern's good, so we always cut the line off. If you leave like a hair of black behind, that's okay. As you saw on the photo that we showed you, or if you joined us in the link that we provided, you can see that that shoe is slashed. So we are going to slash the shoes. So, Kat, set up your pattern.
All right, so first I'm going to line it back up carefully, and then mark where I'm going to slash two with little dots and our little pokey awl. I'm not going through the material, just making a little dimple, face down, and just very carefully with an X-Acto start and stop on my second dot, and it might take a couple cuts, but that's the first slash. So
and I always recommend that when you're doing a shoe project or a boot project that you always use a fresh blade.
Nothing beats a fresh X-Acto. One last slash on the big part. So we have three big ones that'll fit over the top of the foot, and this is going to go around the ankle.
This shoe cutout matches exactly the pattern in the link we gave you that goes to the museum photo. And what I wanted to talk about is why we chose that one, or why I like it more than others. Now, there's plenty of slashes in shoes that go below the mark we went, but she's going to be using this shoe for fighting purposes. So her knuckle is 11 to 11. If we look at the paper pattern, I've drawn a black line here from 11 to 11. This is where all the tension on the ball of her foot will be. And I want it to be perfectly snug, and I don't want it to be loose. So I'm not going to put slashes here. This is the part that goes around the ankle, and this is the part that is going to get sewn around the midsole. And I've done that because these are slip-on shoes used for fighting, and I want to make sure it grips her heel really good. So if I'd made this as just a rectangle, you would put it on the shoe and realize you wanted to pinch. And the thing that everybody would want to do is like, man, I wish I had pinched, and then usually they pinch and cut so that this grips their heel and they don't slip out. Well, I kind of, from making all these shoes and stuff, have experienced stuff, so I use rotational dart theory. So if we put it on our grid here and we imagine that this is in fact a rectangle, and that was what you wanted to do, and I wanted to pinch effectively a triangle out of this, I'm going to use rotational dart theory. What I do is I take my triangle that I would want to pinch, divide it by 2, spin it down, double it. And that's where this big cutout comes. So I know that when it's like this on the midsole, that this angle here will grip her heel so that she won't be coming out of the shoe all the time. So here's our strip, folks. And what we're going to do is we're going to do just like the historical shoe. We're going to sew this face to face, and then we're going to fold it over. And then we're going to do a stitch, and to save time, because we're going to try and get this shoe done in about 2 hours, we're going to go ahead and machine stitch it, a blind stitch. You'll never see the stitch, and then that bead will help keep this from overstretching while she's fighting in it. The stitch that we could do to lock this down is identical to the stitch I'm going to show you in a few minutes when we turn this in. That way when the shoe goes up, it buckles and does that cool fluffy cut thing. So it'll be the same stitch. But again, folks, I have a sewing machine, and for the purpose of time, I'm going to go ahead and use it since we'll be showing you the historical stitch in just a few moments. So I'm going to drop the needle right between the two pieces of material, and I'm going to sew directly over that seam. Now, if I do it perfectly, you don't get to see it too much. The glue choice for this part of the project is Eco Bond and environmentally...
Just laugh. It's fine. Get it out. Get it out.
Okay. I'm tarded, man. All right, let's go. Ready? Go. So the glue choice for this part of the project is Eco Bond, an environmentally marketed PVA glue from Tandy, and we'll be using a Q-tip for the applicator. You do not need glue for this step, it just makes it easier. Q-tip.
Q-tip. That's what you call teamwork.
Team? Is there a Q in team?
I don't know.
Then it should be team tip.
Team tip. Jesus.
Bad dad jokes, that's what I got. About 1/8 of an inch below this, the sewn seam. There you
Okay.
go. Great.
Give it a massage.
Yeah, right. So like all contact cement, folks, we are going to let it dry to a super tacky state. We're going to fold it over by hand, and then you use a BFH.
BFH.
God, man, yeah, slip of the
It's a
tongue.
BFH.
Right, for big freaking hammer.
Yes. It's my favorite tool.
The heel counter, and its job in the shoe is to keep you from shifting left or right or further back on the shoe. That's where the most amount of pressure is, and usually all shoes will have 2 layers of leather. I've put my little pliers here to show you something. On the historical shoe, this is about what they are. Something like this, maybe something like that, right? They're usually very small, but because Kat's fighting, we're going to use this big one. And once again, I'm going to use my skiver. Again, how a skiver works, it's got a curved blade. I have the inside and the outside. Because I can't skive from beginning and end of a cut, I will have to take 2 cuts. So on one, I'll do the inside of the blade, and one, I'll do the outside of the blade. This is a granite. This is a granite cutout that I got from a sink countertop company. I bought it on Craigslist for a couple bucks. It's perfectly smooth, and it's really great for sliding my super sharp blade around the piece while it's riding on the granite, making for a super smooth cut, so that this is feathered. So what we have is a paper thin on this side, and then we have our full depth here. It's pretty stiff, it's pretty much dry. I made sure that I glue the edges, because if it fails on the edge, it fails. So I always make sure my edges are really good. I'll place it in position. I'm going to push down the skive, clear off some of that glue. And BFH, French hammer, again. Dinos on, wax off. Holy, oh, okay. This is really easier than I just made this look, folks. Sorry about that. It just grabbing the leather. What we see in the historical shoe stitch, and this is a really horrible picture of my leather coming around and bending back and the skive end pushed. And what we see in the historical record is a stitch that does this. And then it shows it going through the material. And that's what they show us. So the question is, what kind of an awl or tool makes this U-shaped piece? And there's a really easy trick to that. I put the black line on there because I know we'll never see it, because I'm going to start here. I'm just going to push it through the leather to the other edge of the black line. And I'll be using pliers for this. I'm going to push it out so you can see it's going, and now makes a U shape through the leather. But you don't see the needle on this side because I have not penetrated the grain. So we're going to use a historical linen thread. We are going to use this stitch. We will come up through one of the punched holes I have here. We will bend it back down so that the sky leather, and we will sew this so you never see the black line because we're using it as our needle guide. So to make our Glover's Needles cheat technique work a little bit better and a little bit easier, I could use a Salesmaker palm, or I could just use these pliers to help me get the tension since I'm not punching or awling the hole, because in fact the needle has the exact same shape. Again, I haven't gone through the material as the awl. All right, Kat, so what you want to do is you want to leave 2 needle lengths of sewing material behind, and then you're going to want to come up through the hole we punched. And then we're going to lay our piece down, and we're going to continue to sew, starting again at the black line underneath it and coming up. And I think I'm not going to use the pliers. I'm just going to use my table to push that needle through. And once again, you can see I've not penetrated the material.
Mm-hmm. This is where you try not to stab yourself?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But if you bleed on stuff, it's good. Always good to bleed on stuff.
Make it a real project.
Yeah. Trust me, the customers have compassion. If you bled for them, they just love you. Not really.
Like this?
Perfect.
Sweet. Onward.
With my surprise.
I was kidding about poking yourself.
Yeah, well, I have a 12-year-old. So let's see what I get. What do I get? I got Snow White, folks, and Belle. Snow White and Belle.
A princess for the princess.
Yeah, now I'm going to need a hug.
Oh, he's okay. Just don't stab yourself anymore.
Yeah.
You want me to finish it?
Yeah.
Okay. I can sew. I may not skive very well, but I sew.
Yeah, I haven't done that in forever. I mean, that's like you saw. We're making a video. You come over, and there we go. I'm stabbing myself, bleeding all over your shit. Is there blood stains all over?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Now it's a project.
It would seem to make sense at this point. Now this thread goes diagonally here, and it's tunneled, and then you would think I would try to do it again from here and come up through there. This is sharp. It's got a blade edge diamond point on it. I don't want to cut my linen thread, so in fact I'm going to go sideways. And again, I did not go through the top of the leather. And from here, I'm going to just go sideways like that over and over and over again to the middle of the shoe. And that way there's no knots, because you know, folks, I don't like putting knots in shoes. And this will stay. It won't come undone. Our next attachment is here. Historically, they would have done an edge-to-edge seam where we put it up like this, and then we do the whole tunneling thing again and attach them. The shoe that we have in the URL that we provided, it's been repaired, and it's difficult to tell what stitch they use. They would not have used in that time period an overlap stitch. And because we're putting artificial soles on the shoe for fighting, I'm not going to use the historical stitch, because once we put the artificial soles on, all the historical stitches kind of have to go out of the window if they're structurally important. This is not a structurally important stitch that we just did, so that's why I want to now go ahead and just do a flesh to flesh. We're now going to, while it's inside out, use a log to flatten the seam using the handle of a hammer. If you want to do this, I'll hold it and you can rub it.
Back and forth.
Back and forth. And you can do this wet if you want, but we're going to make this project in about 2.5 hours, so we're not going to do it wet.
This leather is really nice. It's taking to it.
Make sure you push down the part where the geared hand there, right there. Yeah, great. Here's our blood-soaked shoe and a 1/2 inch strip of material that will cover the circumference of the shoe so that we can do a rand. What a rand is I'm basically going to sew it like this, and then after it's sewn, we'll rotate it around the midsole, and because that's how the historical shoe was done. Of course, I do have a machine. It can be done by hand. I'll be using the machine. My split in the rand to happen on the inside of the shoe, so it's less seen. I'd also like it to be a little bit away, maybe an inch from this seam. That way it can lock that seam in and reinforce it. And one of the things I've never really discussed, and I will now tell you, is you'll notice I always drop my needle into the project and then drop my foot and start the sewing from there. It's usually too much and too risky for a leather needle to just get plunged into the leather fresh like that. And it's always good to check both sides to make sure you've got a good clean stitch and that you didn't fall off the edge at any point. Here we are at our 3-in-1. Sometimes I would call it a 5-in-1. That's because originally this tool was a 5-in-1 and the original owner stripped it of 2 of its functions. But you'll get to see 2 of those functions today, folks. Now you can do this with shears, you can do this with a utility knife, but today we're going to use our 3-in-1 so we don't dull up some shears.
It's a beautiful old machine.
Yeah, it's not very ergonomic though. The arm's too long.
Or I'm too short.
Oh, we'll go with that. Nobody likes short people anyway.
Oh, rude.
So to make things go a little easier on us, I'm going to use my sander just to trim up this edge and make it nice and smooth to feed through another machine we'll be using a little bit later. Modern, and it will do a stitch that replicates the historical stitch. This will be a locking stitch. The historical stitch was a saddle stitch. If you're doing this project by hand, by all means look up saddle stitch. The reason why I smooth the sides is because the midsoles are going to run across this smooth bar here, setting my stitch depth. And we're on to the next step. I wanted to show you why I cut my counter piece shallow or not all the way to the bottom of the shoe. First of all, I need a track for my walking foot, so I made sure that the width is the same as my walking foot machine. But when we fold the rand over to sew it to the shoe, you can see that there's no more space. If that was a double space, that would make that all wonky and fat and hard to sew and hard to handle, and you definitely feel it while wearing. So now this is lined up and it is going to be completely comfortable with our rand. Here we are, we're about 2 hours into the project and we're about ready to sew the rand on. We're going to be using barges cement, so ventilation and gloves and a mask are necessary. The black lines on the midsole are where she's going to be dropping the glue all the way around the edge.
And this is the messy mat, so it's okay.
Yeah, messy mat, that's what it's for. Here's our shoe with the rand glued to the midsole and that there's no extra material overlapping. And now we're going to talk about the techniques to sew it. This is a perfect time to use this marking tool for your stitches and then use a stitching awl to stitch through. And you would just line it up really close to the rand stitch, and that's how the historical stitch goes. You could also use your 4-hole punch, and you could come in and you could punch your holes and you could hand sew it like previous projects we've shown on SOP nights. But again, I showed you that machine I have, that Rapid E. That Rapid E mimics with linen thread perfectly the historical stitch. And because we're just doing this in a few hours time, I think we're not yet to 3 hours, we're going to go ahead and use the Rapid E machine. So follow me over to the Rapid E. Start on the inside. The stitching is done, and I wanted to remind you one last time that if you have chosen to make the historical version of the shoe, you would have used this leather for a midsole and not this artificial material, and you would then use this material for a sole, and you have the historical version of this shoe.
So what are we doing here, Bohemond?
You just trace the line with a Sharpie. We're going to hack it out with a knife, leaving some margin in case we shift during gluing, so we don't have to be 100% on with the glue.
I like these metallic Sharpies.
Yeah, buy them by the box. They're dirt cheap. If you buy them onesies and twosies, they cost you an arm and a leg. We're going to use Barge's thinner to remove all of the roller oils and lubricants that the material ran through at the factory and all the finger oil that we might have added to it while working with it. Again, while using Barge's thinner, gloves and mask. And we shall also do the same to the bottom of the shoes. We are extremely tacky, not wet at all. Let's go ahead and apply the shoe. It's actually the shoe closest to me.
That would be tragic. Heel to toe, toe to heel, does it matter?
You can just put it flat and just try to make sure you hit your lines kinda.
Okay.
Okay, pressure. Let's get that other one right now and then we'll show everybody another trick. Here we're back at our 3-in-1. That knife edge is going to run up against the midsole.
Oh, it's like that scene in Willy Wonka. Uh-oh,
Yeah.
I'm stuck.
Get a little gas there.
Here we go.
Okay, so you want to keep it perpendicular. Right now you're dipping it a little bit. You want to keep it perpendicular to the cutting surface. There you go. There we go, folks. You can see that. Again, you can use a hand knife and trim this off. The 3-in-1. So this is a spring-loaded handle, and you can see that it puts pressure on this wheel, and then it's going to grind. So I'm going to put that right there, and I'm going to start wheeling, and that's going to give me a really good pressure around the shoe before we go to the jack stand. In the industry, this is called a jack stand. Again, you can just use a table at home and put pressure on it if you're getting a good bind. But I thought today would be a great day to show you a jack stand. It's a contact cement. It likes to be struck under pressure, and this is a French hammer designed for this very purpose. So here we have our layers of materials, right? And we're just going to use the sander. You can use a belt sander, like a wood sander from your own home shop, or just use a sharp knife to do this, super sharp knife. But I have the sander, so that's what we're going to do.
This is where it gets funny.
Yeah, we'll give each other shit. Well, here's our completed project, folks. What do you think, Kat? Was it fun?
It was so much fun. I loved it.
So we, the first pair went so easy, we decided to make another pair. So we made 2 pair, folks. So I think you all could make this shoe project really in 6 hours reasonably without the machine tools I use if you want to hand sew everything. The good news is Master Fraser is going to come visit, and we're going to make a pair of turn shoes all by hand, all with hand tools, with perforations, pinking, and all kinds of cool techniques. That's going to be coming up soon, so I hope you really enjoy that.
I might come back for that.
It's going to be good. You'll watch the video.
I'm a slave to fashion, so
yeah.
I gotta.
Well, he actually wrote a book on turn shoes. This is awesome. So he's going to come visit. Anyway, I think you can do this project in 6 hours. I hope that you're inspired. I hope that you learned something today. And I really hope that you get in the comments section, hit like, hit share, hit hashtag, whatever, how that goes.
And don't forget to subscribe.
And so, subscribe. Yeah,
it's important.
That too. So we'll see you all soon. And thank you for joining us in Shop Nights with Mistress Kat. Ta-da.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, the end. That was it. That's all we need.
Fabulous.
That was pretty easy peasy, right?
It was super easy. And this is where you have the outtakes, and I'm like picking my nose or something.
Please get you a picture like nothing.